Hello, ladies and gents, fellow Depsians. Here are some rather new and interesting designs. They look quite different from my older craft. This is because they're mass driver weapons and because they use, somewhat cheesy building techniques. I decided to give them a different look than those other craft. All right, let's jump into show and tell and see what they can do. Oh, there you have it. The straw sun has been cut in half. It's the front half that disappears. Now goes second half. Okay, so that was a pretty fun montage. This is a look inside the design. So I've decided to go full ham in terms of uh, the cheesiness of using most of the so-called legal exploits for the game, or rather, they're legal, but you call it questionable building techniques. So this is one piston clipping just to make this craft as small as possible. It's only about 200k. Um, yeah, the idea of me creating my own mass driver system when so many already exist. So I just want something cheap and disposable. The mass driver is not a very reliable design, even though I try to maximize reliability. The hit rate here is about 50%, excuse me. And of course, the projectile been built. Basically, we have a nuke inside our ship that can explode if there's a misfire or if it's been damaged while the projectile has been built. So I don't want to risk like a large system. Something that relies on construction. Constructing its ammunition in battle would only serve a defensive function. So I don't want something massively expensive. I feel like the cost of 200k is semi-disposable when it's designed to take on ships in the 600k to 1 million range. Obviously, it can also one-shot uh, crafts of its own size, but that's not really an economic solution to use something like this. So here for the weapon, I decided to use blueprint spawners as a block to hold the projectile. So it will spawn a projectile every 20 seconds, or it will spawn every 30 seconds, which it takes 20 seconds to construct a projectile just due to the number of different blocks in there. This is envisioned as a long range system of about you know uh, 4 to 2 kilometers far. Uh, so it would be depending on range for defense and missile defense. Snipe the target, even as additional support to a conventional combat craft uh, that would draw fire and aggression away from it for it to construct its projectile safely. So here we can see the projectile is armed with nuclear weapons, which I quite like. As discussed in Sam's mass driver tutorial, these nukes would remove the projectile if it misses, if it travels too far past the target, therefore improving um, performance of the game uh, just by not having a bunch of projectiles piling up at edge of the map. Due to recent physics changes to the game, kinetic projectiles are not as viable, so the nuclear arm does. No, it is one of the few viable ways to do it. As for the constructor itself, I feel like it's simpler to have fewer moving parts rather than having different docking stations that reload mechanically or having, yeah, just different lots of moving parts that people have done to get them to rapid fire. For me, I'm more comfortable with just a cheaper system and simpler. Uh, just have a few duplicates as backup. Here you can see there's fins, there's AI. So the AI is what allows one of the ACVs to detect proximity fuse these nukes. Without the AI, I have found that you cannot proximity fuse them. They wouldn't know if the vehicle is close to another vehicle. So the proximity fuse here we can see is 50 meters. Additionally, the projectiles are armed with uh, a slight seeking behavior. It kind of like tries to point at the enemy. Um, I found they give it slightly advantage in reliability to hit. It's not huge, but it took me a very long time, like 2 evenings, to tune these fins, just to get it to work a bit better. As well with a small craft like this, right? When it's trying to seek the target or maintain optimal range, or if the target is, for example, maneuvering or broadsiding rather than coming toward us, it's quite hard to, the mothership itself or the launcher is also turning. Sometimes it will not, the graviton rams coming out of these guns will not hit uh, these armatures in a very spot on manner, and then sometimes it would just spin off to the side out of control rather than flying straight. Which is quite frustrating, but just having slight bit of guidance helps. So looking a bit into the projectile itself as well, we can see the mass is right behind these armatures, which is what Softman has recommended in his mass driver tutorial. As well, the weight or the inertial mass of the projectile has to be fine-tuned as well. Because how the launcher aims the projectile is by aiming these graviton ram uh, rounds, and that calculates the trajectory of 1300 meters per second, 1400 meters per second to the target, and it leads the target by that much. Um, so we kind of just tune the inertial mass of this projectile to fly at around the same speed to give it a better hit probability against a broadsiding target, especially a fast one like an airship. The reassembly process is quite fun. So you can see this craft has a shield, what I call a Flyswatter, as a Flyswatter because the projectile is quite vulnerable when it's been built, And how FTD calculates high explosive damage calculation is that there's a radius and it scans the radius for any vehicles that need to be damaged. The game doesn't actually understand that the projectile is inside this chamber when it comes to calculating high explosive damage. So if we do have high explosive projectiles coming in, we need some way to make that damage take place farther away so it doesn't disturb the projectile while it's been built during the full 20-second build sequence. Misfires where damage to it can cause the whole craft to explode, which not very conducive to destroying the enemy. Here we can see another approach to the mass driver problem. This is the Lightbringer system, which I built after the Anathema. Um, I wouldn't say it's necessarily better, but just a different approach. Because it took full 20 seconds for the Anathema to build its projectile and fire, it is quite vulnerable and not dealing damage. So the Lightbringer concept creates the smallest possible projectile. It does have an AI, and then you can so it can do a proximity fuse as well. It spawns the projectile in merely 4 seconds, which is as small as I'm comfortable with it, and then it fires. The barrel is quite long, so if during that time the projectile is detonated, there's minimal damage to the launcher, during which it will redock with the mothership to be repaired, and then it will go in again and try to do another attack run. Um, the Lightbringer is only 50k, and it can fire nuclear weapons into an enemy ship. Uh, so they're meant to be disposable and only function with the support of a mothership. Uh, they also have a maximum range of about 800 meters, under which they can hit a target quite reliably, but uh, any distance beyond that, the projectile would just spiral out of control and not even land within 100 meters of the target. All right, let's focus on this one. Yeah, as you can see, for a mass driver, it's pretty rapid firing. If it gets damaged, then it will go back to the mothership for repairs. Uh, yeah, it's quite satisfying, isn't it? Well, it appears to be AI dead, and so this only works so well because, um, well, the I chose a specific enemy that doesn't have very good AA capabilities. Otherwise, anything that has a rapid fire capability or flak or any kind of AoE damage will be able to knock out these projectiles while they're being built. Uh, I think 3-4 seconds is a reasonable amount of gap. So even when they do have AA, we can still potentially shoot through it, but yeah, it's pretty high risk. As well, being short range, these guns can only be effective against uh, stationary targets, against a fast flying target faster than 40 meters per second. They do struggle quite a bit as well. So very situational, but it adds a lot of firepower to any kind of system. It's pretty easy to equip them to an existing system, just uh, weapons platform, just so that they can kill a target faster. So they're not like, oh, I'm losing and this will help me, but it's more so like a win more kind of uh, sidearm that if we're already winning, that it will allow us a very little cost to just win that much quicker. So yeah, thanks for watching. There you have it, the Anathema, the Lightbringer, and the experimental battle cruiser with two Lightbringer gun systems.